Today we're transforming thrift store finds into fall and Halloween vibes with fun DIY projects. Welcome to the Chic Show. Using Sonnets Maker's Box, I'll show you how to decoupage on simple items for beautiful home decor that's festive, creative, and budget-friendly. For project number one, I'm using one of these paper boxes from Dollar Tree and this particular decoupage paper from Sonnets Maker's Box, Renfrew Blue and Mustard from Fusion Paint. So I'm using the Renfrew Blue on the bottom part of the box, so I will give it one or two coats. My brush was a little bit wet here, so I did go over that again. This paper is called Pumpkin and Fall Views. It's the Painted Photographer rice paper that's included in this month's box. I cut one of these to fit on the top of the box, and then I took a wet paintbrush and went around the edges and pulled back that paper so that the edges would be a little bit feathered. I am painting the edge of the lid with that mustard paint. When using rice paper or decoupage paper, you do want the background that you place your paper on to be white. So you can either paint the surface white or you can actually paint the back of the paper white. And that's what I chose to do here. It also helps if you spritz the paper just a little bit with some water, and I'm adding liquid patina, and then I'll place my rice paper on top of the liquid patina. Once I have my rice paper placed down, I do go back over it with the liquid patina on top. We'll set this aside to dry completely. And then once it's dry, I'm going to go back with some clear wax and then some black wax. The clear wax is applied first so that you can add the black wax and still go back and wipe it back so that it's not quite so dark. So I coated the entire box with clear wax, and now I'm going to go over the entire box with black wax, and I'll use a dry paper towel to wipe that black wax back. There's just something about applying black wax over these darker colors that just really make them even richer and give them a little bit of depth as well. Now I decided around the edges of my paper wasn't quite dark enough, so I took a little makeup brush and brushed along the edges with more of that dark wax. This little metal bucket or bag was $4, but it was on sale, so I got it half price. And these are just stickers on the front, so I did what I could to remove them. I could not get that sticky stuff off at all, but that's okay because I'm going to be using decoupage paper on this, so that will just help it stick that much better. This is some of Roy Cycled's decoupage paper from the box, and it's called Autumn Hearth Plaid. And I'm going to be wrapping this paper all the way around the entire piece. I'm using some liquid patina, and I'm going to start on one of the ends so that I can nestle that little corner down into the bottom. I'm just working in sections with that liquid patina, then spraying my paper with some water, and then working all the way around. I tried to use a small pair of scissors to cut here where the handles were attached, and that seemed to work fine. I'll go back and cut the rest of that off with a craft knife once it's completely dry. Once everything is completely dry and I've cut away those little notches at the top, I'm going to go around this piece with my sanding block just to sand off any excess paper. This will give me a nice clean edge. And here's a look once that paper is completely dry and ready to move on to the next step. Sonnet also includes some digital downloads, and this is the one that I chose to use, and it didn't fit exactly when I printed it out, so I did cut it because I wanted those pretty worn brown edges to show. So I cut a section of this piece off and then just glued it onto the bottom. And again, I'm using Mod Podge this time to adhere the paper to the front of the decoupage paper. And this is just regular printer paper that I printed this out on. I've had this tray in my stash for a while. I got it for $1, as you can see, and I'm going to be using the other recycled paper from this month's box called Whispers of Fall. Now, as I said before, it's best to paint your surface white before applying a decoupage paper, just because it will make the papers pop a little bit more. And actually, it's kind of funny, the similar colors that are in the original tray, how they compare to the colors in this particular paper. Once I decide which part of the paper I want to use, I cut that out, and then starting at one end of the frame, I used that liquid patina again, brushed it on, spritzed my paper, and laid my paper down into the liquid patina and coating it on top. It would have been almost impossible for me to cut this to fit completely because the sides do kind of go up on this tray, and with it being rounded, that was just going to create a problem. So I just applied it like this, and then I'll go back with a craft knife and cut away the excess paper when I'm finished. You do want to let the paper dry completely before you use the craft knife. Now, once I get all that excess paper removed, I'm going to go back with a little bit of that black wax along the edges of the paper where you see those white spots. For those little rattan handles, I decided to paint those using the Sweet Pickins milk paint in curry that was in this month's box. So I did give this about 3 coats of the paint before I liked the actual finish. And these aren't actually rattan, they're more plastic, so it did take several coats to cover. Once that had completely dried, I went back with some dark wax and I rubbed that over the handles just to help them blend in with the rest of the piece. I love how this turned out, and I would love to know what you think too. Let me know down in the comments. Sonnet always includes a decoupage napkin, and this time it is these beautiful pumpkins. So I cut out one section of the napkin, and I still have 3 sections that I can use on other products. Once I get this section cut out, I did remove all the plies except for the top ply of the napkin where the image is actually printed. Recently thrifted this little harvest basket, and I thought it would be perfect for fall. Now, this is pretty uneven, but I think the napkin is thin enough that it should just kind of meld and mold to the shape of this basket. So I'm going to do a little starter strip, and then I will add my napkin. Once I get my napkin in place, I did use my brush again to gently brush over the napkin and brush down into those little nooks and crannies. You may have noticed that this time I did not paint my background white, and that's because I wanted this to blend in more with the basket, and I was fine with a darker background for this. And this was very simple because that's literally all I did to this piece. This is The Moody Night by the Painted Photographer Rice Paper, and DIY paint Mermaid Tail and Electrified. This is a box I've had in my stash since last year, and I'm going to start by giving it a coat of Waverly chalk paint in ink, the inside of the box and the outside. When I first saw this rice paper, I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it, and it turned out to be my favorite piece from today. So I'm real excited about it, and I hope that you like it too. I'm going to go ahead and trim down the paper to fit on the top of the box. I'm going to paint over those images on the front with Waverly chalk paint in Snow White, and this will take a couple of coats to cover those dark colors. My first plan was to go with a mermaid tail for this box, and then I decided to go ahead and paint it black and make it more Halloween-ish. And I am using that electrified on the edges of the top of the box. And once again, I'm going to add that liquid patina, spritz my rice paper, and place it on the top of the box. Once the paper is dry, I'm sanding away the excess around the edges to give that nice smooth line. I felt like this piece needed something at the top, so I decided to add a name of a piece of music by Camille Saint-Saëns called Danse Macabre. And yes, that does mean Dance of Death, but it's really a fun piece of music. I recommend you go look it up and listen to it. It's just really a fun piece. So I stamped that on the top using my Apothecary label stamps from IOD. And then I used some black wax and clear wax along the edges. I started with that clear wax and then went back with a little bit of dark wax on the edges of the top. I placed the top on top of the box and then decided I think this still could use a little bit more. What should I do? And then I thought, well, it's a piece of music. Let's add some music. So this is IOD's Waltz stamp. I did not want this to be really dark, so I just lightly tapped my ink pad over the section that I wanted to stamp and then rubbed over it gently and pulled it back, and this was perfect. This is exactly what this needed. So again, I encourage you to go look up Camille Saint-Saëns' Danse Macabre and listen to it. It's really a fun piece of music. I hope this fall and Halloween DIY with decoupage inspired you to create your own unique home decor. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and come back for more cozy seasonal DIY ideas. Don't forget to check out Sonnets' channel and her website and get more information on the Maker's Box. I think she is opening up more spaces for the holiday box, so get yours now. If you need more inspiration, check out this video right here. Thanks so much for watching. Remember to share the chic. Bye now.